If you hate painting trees, this one is for you. Hello, my autumn fiends. Fall is in the air. I am looking at the changing leaf colors outside my window, and I'm so excited. I love this time of year. I think it's my favorite time of the year. And so we are going to be painting this adorable garden gate with the fall-esque feeling to it. I am starting with the blue sky behind the garden gate with a wet on wet. And then I'm using turquoise from Dr. P.H. Martin. Just a little section because I'm going to be putting a lot of foliage in there, so I don't need that much sky. I just wanted it to be nice and dry before I moved on to doing the leaves and stuff in front of there, so that's why I started with the sky. Then I'm taking kind of a very, 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 very watered down black with a tiny touch of sepia in it. Just to give it that kind of shadowy look. It's a white gate, but I do want some shadows in there just to make it a little bit more three-dimensional. Of course, feel free to use the stencil that is in the description. So I'm just putting all the shadows here. I'm doing wet on dry, and then I'm taking a clean wet brush to blend that into the paper. So then I just add a little bit more until it gets to the effect that I want. If I want more shadow, I just kept doing it until I felt like I liked it. I tend to like more shadows and light. I think it just really gives values and depth to the painting, but of course it is your discretion, it's your painting. However you feel it needs, that's what you should do. And it's one of those gates that has the kind of crossbars of the wood towards the center, so I'm just adding in some shadows to reflect that it is like a wood paneling. And I will go over probably a little bit more later, adding a little bit more shadow, but I want to get most of the base done, and then once I have the painting completed, I will then take a look and see if it needs any more. I often get people doing this, and then, because I've taught this class a few times in person, and they're always like, oh, should I do more shadow? That's up to you. And I say that to them, and then they get frustrated because they have to make a decision. but it is up to you. Do you like the contrast? Do you like the more subtle, traditional watercolor look? Whatever it is that you like, that's what you should do. I am adding I apologize if you can hear that sound in the background. That is my ice maker. Of course, it just decides to to pop out the ice right when I'm talking. And then I'm adding the shadow underneath the pumpkin. Just because I don't want to worry about the orange bleeding into the shadows later. So I'm just doing some kind of shadowing and some streaks to just give it that sidewalk look to it, the little walkway and stuff. And then as you get closer to like underneath the gate, that's where you want to do a little bit darker, of course. So if you hate painting trees, I have a lot of regular students that come to my classes, and trees are their demise. They hate it, but they love trees in general. So I gave them these Q-tips, and they were just so happy. They're like, oh, I don't have to use a brush. So I use the Q-tips just to give it that kind of really nice deep foliage look. They're not really trees per se. They're more like or maybe underneath, I don't know what they are. They're trees-ish. I also put a piece of painter's tape at the top of the gate. You can barely see it. I'll just make a mental note to use a washi tape from now on, just so that you guys can actually see where I'm applying it. But just so that I can go over the gate line, but not actually paint over it, because I want the gate to look like it's in front of the foliage, not behind it. So you can kind of see the edge of the tape there where I put it. And that's, like I said, just so I could get a nice clean line without having to like really avoid the area. It looks a little bit more realistic that way. And then I'm using a green and orange paint to do the foliage. A little bit of the yellow. The yellow that I'm using is the gamboge. It is a color I use quite often. And I'm just kind of willy-nilly mixing them together. I have them separate on my palette. The green, the gamboge, the orange. I think it's a burnt orange I'm using. And then I'm just kind of dipping them in all the colors. There's no rhyme or reason to how I'm doing it. It's just some parts I'm like, oh, more green. Some parts are more orange. Some parts have yellows in it. I don't mix them before. I want there to be separation of the colors. And then I do like just a tinier dot with the Q-tip to just do some smaller leaves like I'm doing right now. And obviously I don't want perfectly round leaves everywhere. It's more to just fill up the space. But as you can see, I'm doing a little bit smaller towards the edges and stuff to make them look more like leaves. I'm also doing yellow for the wreath, and then I'm adding in layers of orange, and then I'll add in layers of green. This is to give it more depth, so I want it to be lighter on the edges, darker on the inside. That makes it look round. And I know a wreath is round, but I mean rounded edges as well. It's like, what is the word I'm looking for? Okay, so for the pumpkins, I am doing a wet on wet for the base, and I am applying burnt orange to the entire pumpkin. And I'm going to do all of the pumpkins. I don't know why I'm doing it one at a time. You don't have to. For the base, in fact, it's probably a lot quicker if you just do it all at once. Just do the base, because you're going to go ahead and add in shadows and stuff later, and so you don't actually have to do them individually. I wanted my pumpkins to be a little bit lighter. I ended up going back and forth. So I did the color, and then I blotted, and then I did the color again, and then I blotted. So I was just going back and forth to get the effect I like. When my students did this, they didn't do that. They did the base color, and then they added a darker orange, and it pretty much looked the same. So they did it in a much more efficient way than I did. I was just playing with it to see how I felt, and then I ended up going pretty dark anyways. So now I'm doing my ribbon, and you can do whatever color you want. I saw some people doing blues. It was really pretty. I think purple. Purple is another color that everyone picked. I'm doing like a reddish purple. I don't remember what color. I think mine was just, I picked a bunch of colors off my palette and did this like dark reddish purple. I just didn't want it to be like this, like a bubblegum pink or bubblegum red. I wanted to do more earth tone look to my painting. So this is the color I picked. And then I will go ahead at the end and add some highlights to the ribbon. But right now I'm adding the shadows. Just a dark underneath, just to make it look more rounded, and just to give it kind of that finished look. I'm also adding some darker, same colors to the wreath. I just was not liking how flat it was looking to me, so I was adding more and more dark towards the inside to make it look a little bit more rounded, more depth and stuff. I said I added green to this, but I don't think I do add green. I think I just stick with the fall color, but you could definitely do green. Somebody did like a green, and they did like white highlights. It was really pretty, but I'm going for the fall look, so I just wanted to keep it all in the fall colors. So now I'm taking that burnt orange, and I am doing the little grooves in the pumpkin to make them look a little bit more rounded. These are very defined lines, so to blend it, again, I use a clean, wet brush to blend it. I do, as you can see, I let it sit a little bit before I do that, because I do want that line to stay there. I just don't want it so defined. So, as you can see, I'm not looking for a perfect blend. So, clean, wet brush should just kind of soften that line and make it look a little bit more in depth. So tell me, how do you guys feel about fall? Do you like fall? Do you think it's overrated? Are you like me and you just like get excited? I don't know. I love it because I just like the cooler weather. Anything over 80 for me is just too hot. And I know that sounds weird coming from somebody who lived in Arizona for 20 years, but I think that can just tell you how miserable I was there because it was like always 80. The only place that's always really over 80 would be Florida, so that would definitely be a nightmare for me. But I like the cooler weather. Right now we're in the 60s, and it's just absolutely perfect. I love it. This time of year, it's like October 2nd. The leaves are changing here, of course, in New England. The skies are still very blue. The trees are still a lot of green on the trees. The grass is still green. So it's my favorite time of the year here. It is so beautiful. And it's not, and it's just starting to get that change, and people are starting to decorate and get excited. So I love this time of year, and I get really, really excited about it. So, how do you feel? What is your favorite season? Is it fall like me, or do you like? Are you a summer person, or what is your favorite season? And what is the weather like where you're at right now? Okay, so I am doing the stems of the pumpkins. As you can see, I didn't leave room for the stems when I was painting. I didn't care because I knew I was going to do a really, really dark brown, and then it would sit nicely on top of whatever color I had. So I wasn't worried about leaving this stem. So when I taught this class, a couple of my students added the little curly Q leaves. Oops, I have hiccups. Curly Q leaves to the stems, and it was so cute. So I wish I had done it, but I learned from my students as well. And I really, really like the curly Q. It was super cute. So now I'm doing the micron pen to do the gate, what is this? So gate block thing. I can't remember the name. And just using micron pen so I can get a nice clean line, keep this really simple. As I tell my students, why make your life more complicated than it needs to be? And adding the little hook for the wreath. And now I'm going back and adding just a touch more of the orange. Like I said, it was a lot of going back and forth for me with the pumpkins to get to where I wanted it to be. And in the end, I was really, really happy with it. So I definitely don't regret my back and forth, but probably would have been a more efficient way. As you can see, the orange ended up being about the same as when I first started before I started blotting. So that's what I was saying when my students were a little bit more efficient because they didn't blot. They just did orange to orange. But, sometimes you just have to do a trial and error to get to the look that you want. But I know the one thing I would definitely change would be to add the little curly cues to the pumpkins. Definitely want to have more of the darker orange at the top and bottom of the pumpkin because that's where the grooves come together and it ends up very dark. Otherwise, it just looks like it's kind of flat. So that's what I'm doing right now is adding a lot more of the darker elements to it. And of course, the final touches are the bleed proof white. So the bleed proof white is, I'm thinning it out a bit with water because it is super thick. If you don't thin it out, you're not going to get these nice thin lines. It's going to be like basically applying paste. So once I do that, it's pretty much done. Let me know if you tried this out, what you think. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, tag me. I would love to see it. Love to see your finished piece. And if you have any special requests for the upcoming holidays in artwork, just let me know in the comments. But otherwise, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share this channel with your friends and family because it's thanks to you that this is growing. Have a good one.